What's up, everyone? Good evening, and welcome to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Kyle Nabors. This is Sean Hammond, and I'm not even gonna waste time getting into propers because I, Sean, I just didn't expect this today, man.
I didn't expect it at 4:30 or 4:45, whatever time it was on this fine Friday afternoon. But hey, we got some big Bears news. Obviously, if you're here with us live or if you're listening later, you know the Bears have traded the number one overall draft pick.
Yeah, Sean. I mean, can you do me a favor? Break it down. What is the haul?
The haul is so the Bears traded back from number one. They get number 9 from Carolina. They also get number 61, I believe it was, Carolina's second round pick. I believe they had two. It was the later of the 2 second round picks. And then they get a first round pick next year and a second round pick in 2025. And then, of course, wide receiver DJ Moore. That is a huge, huge addition to this trade here. You know, Ryan Poles mentioned a couple of weeks, or not even a couple of weeks ago, 10 days ago, whatever it was at the combine, that getting an additional player is on the table. And he did that, Kyle, and he got a really good one.
Yeah, we came into the offseason knowing how poor this free agent class was going to be at wide receiver and knowing that the Bears needed to make a big splash. And while there were a lot of guys I liked in the draft at wide receiver, I was, wondering if that was the route to take or if they could pull off a trade for someone like DeAndre Hopkins. We've talked on this podcast about T. Higgins. DJ Moore was a name that I'd seen bandied about, but I'll be honest, it kind of wasn't on my radar. And when I saw the trade with Carolina, that the Bears had made this trade with Carolina, I wasn't surprised to see the trade. I was surprised when all of a sudden it kind of was, I think Adam Schefter was the first to report. And I'm pretty sure it was, you see all the picks and then DJ Moore at the end. And
it's like that at the bottom of the tweet.
Yeah. And it's like, well, that's a hell of a throw in there.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, I would say I'm less surprised. I mean, obviously, I'm still a little surprised that DJ Moore was available because I think if you're the Bears, that's a no-brainer. And if you're looking for a player in return, and you're looking at, we kind of had 4 teams targeted. We had the Texans at number 2, the Colts at number 4, the Raiders at number 7, and the Panthers there at number 9. And as far as like players who can instantly help what you need, I mean, DJ Moore is at the top of the list when you look at those 4 rosters and guys who could potentially be included in a trade. And the fact that the Panthers made him available is a little bit surprising. They just signed him to a big extension last year. He's under contract through 2025. But they're kind of reshuffling things down there in Carolina. They're trying to get their quarterback clearly after this move, and so that kind of changes the timeline for them. And maybe DJ Moore, keeping him was obviously less of a priority, and that really worked out to the Bears' favor.
Want to throw this up here from my good buddy Mike B. Had said, I am completely shocked DJ Moore was included in this. I would have done this deal without the future picks given he's included. When you say the future picks, Mike, are you referring to like the first rounder next year?
Yeah, I think he's talking about probably.
I think they needed a first rounder next year too.
Here's the thing: if the Panthers were going to move up from number 9, it probably had to include a player, or you're talking about the 24 and 25 first round picks, because you're jumping down pretty far from 1 to 9 if you're the Bears.
Yeah. I mean, I really, really like DJ Moore. Like you look at the level of production, the physicality, the speed. I believe I don't want to say something dumb out of turn because I haven't looked it up, but I'm pretty sure he has had a bit of issues with drops over the years. But then you look at some of the quarterbacks that have been going through the Carolina system these last few years, and the production DJ Moore has been able to put together in that offense with that quarterback play. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a revolving door down there for the Panthers at quarterback. His rookie year was Cam Newton's last year as the full-time starter. Obviously, Cam at one point did come back and start a couple of games more recently, but a revolving door down there at quarterback. Numerous, they've been one of those teams that has been trying over and over again to find a veteran who can stick and fill that role. Some of the quarterbacks DJ Moore's been playing with: Cam Newton, Kyle Allen, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and who can forget PJ Walker last year?
How many guys, or how many of those people on that list can accurately get the ball downfield consistently? I don't think a single one of them, on a consistent basis.
No, not on a consistent basis.
Like Teddy's probably the best of the group.
Teddy Bridgewater is not a bad quarterback, but Cam Newton in his prime,
right?
Sure.
But like Teddy wasn't. And by the time he was in Carolina here recently, like he wasn't pushing the ball downfield. So they weren't getting everything they could out of DJ Moore because of the limitations of their offense. Want to, before we go any further now, we'll slow down for a second. We're going to stick around here for 20, 30 minutes. Depends on how many people pop in. We're obviously doing this breaking news here, just jumping on. It's already, almost 6 o'clock on a Friday evening. So not sure how many people will be on with us, but already seeing some stuff come into the chat. If you are watching on YouTube, if you're watching on any of Shaw Media's Facebook pages right now, you can throw a question or comment in the chat. We will try and get that to you. Tori and Robbie, Zim Fearme, Mike B, of course, Alan. Good to see all you guys in the chat so far. You can go to shawlocal.com right now. We already have a story up. Sean went to work right away, giving you the background info on DJ Moore. And if you're wondering, hey, where's Hub? It's because Hub had furiously pounding away on a new column because he was just finishing up his last free agency preview column. And as I was just getting ready to dial his number, the phone rang, and he's like, I'm going to tear this up, aren't I? I'm like, yes, you are. So be looking out on the lookout for that within the next couple hours. Hub's initial take on this trade will be there. Sean, all right, man, let's slow it down. And one more thing I think about it. If you are on YouTube, or if you come across this later and you're watching this back, do us a favor, give this a thumbs up, subscribe to the page, leave a comment, tell a friend. Anyone that joins us, it helps grow the channel, makes us want to do this more. It's much more fun when we're interacting with you guys instead of feeling like we're just talking to each other. So
it sure is.
Appreciate the help there. CJ, good to see you popping in, man. Sean, I mean, where do you want to go with this?
Well, I do want to address too just the fact that not only are the Bears getting a really talented receiver and a haul of draft picks, but in getting DJ Moore, they're really solving one of their major issues here too. That's one less position that you're going to have to worry about in free agency. And we've talked about how this is a really weak free agent class at wide receiver. And it's one fewer priority in the draft. I mean, they can certainly still draft a wide receiver. They got 10 picks. I mean, I expect them to probably draft somebody, but it doesn't have to be a second round pick. It doesn't have to be a third round pick. You can save that for day 3 at this point, because I think you got a pretty promising group with DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, throw in Cole Kmet at tight end. I mean, that's a promising group of pass catchers for Justin Fields.
The next thing to do here, because I'm already starting to think about I want to definitely start diving into the thoughts of how they're going to align their wide receivers. It's already racing through my head, but let's get to this first, which is I want to find his contract, DJ Moore's contract, because that I believe is a pretty sizable contract in terms of what the cap hit is going to be. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but when you're talking about the Bears have all the money in the world to spend. So it's not the end of the world. It's just, okay, how do you account for it here? So
it looks like Over the Cap has already updated this for after the trade. They already got him on the Bears here.
Ooh, yeah, that's I mean, his cap hit becomes $20.165 million. So, I mean, that is, even with all the money the Bears have, that is a substantial chunk.
So your $100 million in cap space next week is effectively down to 80.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is first world problems right there. If you're Ryan Poles, that's still the most in the NFL by a wide range.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like that's Sam, good to see you. It's not an issue, but like I do know that there were some rumblings in league circles about like if DJ Moore had fully earned that level of contract when it comes. I mean, that is a really big cap hit for. I mean, I know wide receivers are getting paid, that type of money now. That's where the league is going, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? But it does give me at least a bit of pause because DJ Moore, while I'm really high, he is not ascended to that what I would feel is a level where he is worthy of a cap number of 20 million. I think he very well could get there very easily.
Yeah, oh, he certainly can. And I'm looking at what overthecap.com has right now. I don't know I'm not quite sure. They got this up pretty quickly, so I don't know where they're exactly getting this from, but I mean it looks like yes, it's a big cap number, this year, next year, and in 2025. But it's a contract that you could get out of those last couple of years in 24 and 25.
It's now that I look at that as I read that again. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the dead cap. So
they got that up pretty quickly, so I don't know if that's necessarily accurate or not.
Yeah, I mean, these guys.
They're pretty good at what they do.
Yeah, I would say they're pretty good at what they do. It just, what I guess I'm saying here now, I almost wish I told Hub, worried about print deadlines, but he knows a little bit more about the way these things are structured. It's just so odd to see the way that they must have just front loaded a lot of the money in Carolina. I'm guessing what happened here, which is fine for the Bears' sake here. I mean, if this is correct, then that's phenomenal. Then like I see Sam had popped in here, 20 million cap hit, but they could restructure to create more cap space, similar to what Miami did with Tyreek Hill today. They don't need to. So if this is right, what we're seeing on over the cap, and I believe, let's see, now I'm over on Sport Track and they have it as well updated, Sean.
Similarly,
yeah,
okay.
So 2024, a dead cap hit of 1.1 million. Is that what you're seeing over on?
If you were to cut or trade him.
Yeah, so that would be yeah, I mean, you don't need to restructure because you got plenty of money to still go into free agency here, and then the money is no longer an issue after this year, right?
Yeah, if you were to want to get out of that,
which
I mean,
I
if you're keeping him on the roster, a $16 million cap hit for a good wide receiver is not that bad of a thing,
right?
And you're talking about the cap's only going to go up in the 24 and 25, so that's going to be a smaller percentage of your available space.
Daniel Peak checking in here with a very good point. Carolina's pick will be extremely high next year.
That's another thing, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, if assuming they're going to draft a quarterback, which is why they would make this move, you're going to have a rookie quarterback, and top receiver's gone now. It could get rough there that first season for whoever they end up drafting.
Yeah, now that like this makes more sense when you think about it too, and you go back to the Christian McCaffrey trade, like that probably significantly increased the availability of DJ Moore, and really everything over the last it's just weird how things fall in place in the NFL. Sometimes you look at Carolina, like they tried to keep this thing going. They made the coaching change. They made the trade for Sam Darnold. Like they tried to bring in bodies at quarterback with McCaffrey and these receivers. And, Robbie Anderson's a decent player. Like I thought Carolina, just a couple of years ago was a team that was maybe not a Super Bowl contender, but I thought it was a team that was going to be a playoff team. And then, everything goes wrong for them. Like the quarterback, not surprisingly, blew up. They end up trading McCaffrey, and then all of a sudden, boom, after signing DJ Moore to a big contract, you're sending them away and giving up a haul of picks in the process so you can, try and fix your quarterback position. It almost feels like you're used to that being the Bears.
Yeah, to put yourself in that position and then having to fix past mistakes and decisions not made in the past. They've had opportunities to draft quarterbacks in the past and they haven't done it. Were they one of the teams that passed on Justin Fields? I can't
Yeah, they
remember offhand.
took.
They were ahead of
What
11.
did they take J.C. Horn? Is that the
That might be right. Yeah. So I mean, now you're rebuilding with. I don't know if they'd call it rebuild. I don't whatever you want to call it. They're getting
this is a complete just tear it down to the studs
yeah,
is what Carolina's doing.
and they're paying the price. They won't have a first round pick next year because of it. But if they get this quarterback decision right, that's going to help a lot of things.
CJ pop in with isn't most of his guaranteed money is due this year, right? One thing that I'm always amused is when we're having stream of consciousness like this in a live stream. I never see people, but like on the podcast version, sometimes they have to have thoughts like that. Like, what the hell are they talking about? But CJ, we did figure that out eventually.
We're reacting to this live here in the moment.
We are. It was literally like I had to scrap all of our like budgeted plans for our print products and what we were doing for kind of our Bears content. Get all of it in and try and get online here. Like I've looked at no social media to see what like fan reaction is, what national reaction is. Have you seen anything, Sean?
I mean, everything seems to be pretty positive towards the Bears. In terms of just the number of assets they got in return for this top pick. Certainly, DJ Moore is that's people seem to be pretty happy about that deal, given where the Bears wide receiving group was last year.
You look at everyone in our chat right now too, and it's awesome that it's filling in like this. We got a lot of new names, which given the context of this news isn't surprising. We love that you guys are joining us here on a Friday evening. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go to shawlocal.com. We have content up already. Your first look at DJ Moore. If you're just joining us, missed it. I also said Hub will be up here in the next couple hours with his initial take. Go over to shawlocal.com. Make sure to get that out on social media. If you follow us at Bears_Insider, you can follow Sean at Sean_ Hammond, myself at Kyle Nabors. And, let's see, Sean, you go ahead. Where do you want to go next?
Man, I don't know. I do think that guys, if you got questions, comments, other thoughts, throw them in the chat. Brian Poles has a heck of a lot of draft assets. We kind of expected, Kyle, that they might have another second round pick whenever they did deal this trade. But you look at where they are now, number 9. This is a pretty good draft class for edge rushers. That's a position where they can still get a really good player at number 9. It looks like Rick here says O-line. That's another. There's another one too. Is if you want to tackle, they can probably get a really good tackle there at number 9. So you have several options for what you want to do with that number 9 overall pick.
So there's a lot to unpack. This changes. I mean, we knew a trade was coming at some point.
It felt inevitable. Yeah.
I just didn't expect the wide receiver to come with it. And it changes the calculus of this so much. Because let's start with the fact of, okay, how are you going to align these 3 guys? You got Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and DJ Moore. I'm interested, to figure out how these guys are going to fit into this offense, all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past that, though, you really start to narrow it down what the Bears are looking for in the draft. Like, could they get weird and go off the board and go best, athlete available or something like that? Possibly, but the most likely scenarios at this point are offensive line, defensive line, and edge rusher, which are good spots in this draft. One question I'll throw out to the chat, when you look at the different trade partners, I mean, Sean, you mentioned what picks at 2, 4, 7, and 9, I believe were the options of teams that could be looking for a quarterback. If you're a fan in the chat here, and I'll throw this question out, And of course, we don't even know if this deal would have materialized, but like, would you have rather had a chance at like number 4 with a better chance of an elite edge rusher and not maybe gotten that wide receiver? Or is this okay to you? Like, just give me, the best player available at number 9. Give me DJ Moore. I think that is going to be an interesting debate at the end of the day, because the difference between like picking 4th and 9th, that when you're picking top 5, you are usually picking a complete blue chip player if you know what you're doing in the NFL. Doesn't mean you can't find an incredible player at number 9, but there is a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference between picking, in the top 5 and picking 9, but it kind of comes down to what Ryan Pohl's draft board looks like. How much does he value? Where does he? How many of those blue chip guys does he really see at the top of the draft? Are there only 2 or 3 versus are there maybe 10, 11, 12 guys who he'd be really happy with getting with that first round pick? And it seems like that's sort of where he's at, where he wouldn't have traded down that far if he didn't think he could still get a really good, valuable player. And obviously, yeah, you throw DJ Moore into the mix, you're getting really two valuable players, and obviously all those other picks as well. And I think the more we talked about this, the more, and especially I think going down to the combine last week, for me anyway, the more I felt like it was a possibility that they were going to move down further than the Colts, further than we initially thought, because it just opens up so many more options. The more teams you're talking to, the more bites you're going to get, so to speak. And the Colts have been weird this whole offseason, with Jim Irsay saying one thing and Chris Ballard trying not to say anything. And I'm not as surprised that they moved down this far as maybe I would have been like 2-3 weeks ago.
I'm wondering if Jim Irsay, now that I think of that, I'm wondering if Jim Irsay was just being Jim Irsay and throwing smoke signals out there, or if he's just somewhere breaking things right now.
I can absolutely see them just staying put right where they are and still getting a quarterback.
I know that. I'm saying I wonder he's such an odd guy. Like, I wonder if if what he was putting out there about wanting the top pick was like legit, where like if they were involved, which at some point you assume that will leak out if they were.
Yeah.
Now that the Bears have made the deal, someone will have loose lips, and Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport, or someone will talk about how the Indianapolis Colts or someone else who was in on the bidding, because this is a pretty good haul. I feel pretty confident in saying that Ryan Poles was not working with one team here.
Oh no, I would imagine there were multiple teams that were picking up the phone.
And if there weren't, this trade wouldn't have been happening, because I don't think most people that I spoke to that have any kind of insight into this thought this trade was going to materialize in the near future. I mean, most people were looking at 2, 3, even 4 weeks before they felt that the Bears were going to make a decision. So I'm guessing this means that it really heated up down the stretch here with multiple teams in the bidding.
Yeah, and I would think that the combine had something to do with that too. I haven't just gotten back a couple of days ago from basically a big NFL convention where you can meet and actually talk to some of these GMs face to face. That's gonna spur conversation for Ryan Poles, and it seems like he wanted to get this deal done before free agency, so he knows where he stands in the draft. And if you want to do that, you can get that done. I mean, he could have waited and maybe made some teams sweat it out a little bit and potentially gotten maybe an extra pick in there or whatever by somebody getting desperate. But I don't necessarily think it was I don't think it was necessary, because he clearly still got a really good return for this pick.
Yeah. So okay, let's go to here. So many things just running through my head. All the questions in here too. Sorry guys, it's kind of hard to keep up, so I don't want to get distracted by the chat. Sean, if you do see someone in there that we really got to hit, But so we look at offensive line. Let's go there quickly. And now again, so as this starts to the Bears roster take shape, wide receiver, check that off, right? The next, I mean, wide receiver was terrible in free agency, and overall, this is one of the weaker free agent classes across the board that we've seen in a while. Doesn't mean they're not good players, but it's definitely going to be a case of guys getting overpaid, even at offensive line, where there are some guys that I like. Those top guys are going to get too much money.
They are, yeah.
I wonder how the Bears approach it now, because I don't believe Ryan Poles is going to just throw money around for the sake of throwing money around. You know, like, I don't think they want to throw a large contract at, you know, I'm blanking out in Kansas City, left tackle, or the tackle, Orlando Brown Jr.
Orlando Brown, yeah.
Yeah, like, very interesting player, but I don't know if he's the type of guy you want to give the money he's going to get this offseason. You know what I mean? Particularly when you've now eliminated a position of need and you have these picks and offensive line is good in the draft. I don't know how he's going to approach free agency now. I'm really, really fascinated to see what happens here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is probably far too simplistic, but you say, you know, tackle, offensive tackle, defensive end, and defensive tackle. Those are your clear three biggest needs. You know, you have the flexibility now to say address two of those in free agency and go get one of them in the draft with that number 9 pick. Now, obviously, you can't really control who falls to you in the draft, so you know that leaves a lot up to chance there. But you know, I think that they're still going to spend big at a couple of positions. I don't think this changes that necessarily. It changes, you know, they don't have to spend big at wide receiver, as we've mentioned. You don't have to do that, and there wasn't really a great option to do that.
No, God, it was awful.
Unless you're looking at Jacoby Myers or Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know who you would spend big money on, and I don't know that those guys would really be the bang for your buck that you're looking for.
Well, so Ravi with the perfect segue for where I wanted to take this, because Ravi says, what would you guys think if the Bears went running back Bijan Robinson at 9? Now, first off, Sean, I'll say this. I think anyone who's listened to the show knows that I don't think you should be taking running backs high. And I really, really like Bijan Robinson. Spending the number 9 overall pick on him, and I do think he's probably going to be a top 10 pick. I don't think that would be a wise move for the Bears. I think their resources would be better used on the lines at edge rusher and look for a running back in those mid rounds. I mean, maybe as early as the second round, because that's where I wanted to go next, Sean, because while I was off on vacation last week, the franchise tag came out, and I didn't expect the Bears to be on someone like Saquon Barkley, but I also was a bit surprised to see Saquon Barkley tagged. Josh Jacobs was tagged. I didn't think the Bears would be in on him. Tony Pollard absolutely shocked me being tagged, and I love Tony Pollard more than just words can even describe. I think anyone, again, that listens knows that. But that's 3 pretty decent names off the board. Like, David Montgomery is there. I would hate a Miles Sanders signing. I liked Miles Sanders coming out of college. I just did not see anything in Philly that I believe you in your prediction had it up there. By the way, that's another thing I can plug. You can go to shawlocal.com. We're probably going to need to update that after this, aren't we? The free agent stuff. We had a free agent preview, and I believe it was you had a projection of maybe like 40 million for Miles Sanders. I want to say
something like that.
And like, I just don't think he's worth that money. So like, then I start going back, like, now you look at where things are settling in, and I'm like, you go back to David Montgomery here and try and get a deal done.
You're talking about like this weekend before he hits free agency?
Yeah. Like, are you trying to beat this?
I mean,
because what are you, I mean, because you have the money, like,
yeah.
I don't know. He's good. Like, he's not elite. I don't know what we're talking about money wise. Remember, we talked about this like a year ago. It looked like Joe Mixon money, and then he comes off this subpar season in a contract year. He ends up injured at the end. Not his fault. Was it at the end? I can't remember. Now it's running together. But yeah, missed time.
Yeah,
And
missed a little bit of time. Missed a little time last year.
Yeah, and then so you're like, all right, that drives his number down. But then those 3 running backs get franchise tagged.
Yeah.
And I wonder, does that push his price back up because there's going to be more teams looking? But how many teams again are paying running back? There's not a lot of teams that are giving big money contracts to running back. So
no, there's not, and a lot of them are usually extending their own guys, the biggest ones. But you go back and look at the body of work and sort of what David Montgomery has averaged over his 4-year career. And I think you can still make an argument that he should be getting Joe Mixon type money. I think he could push $12 million a year. And I don't think that I don't think Ryan Poles wants to spend that type of money on a running back. And that's why I don't think, I think David Montgomery and Miles Sanders will wind up with somewhat similar yearly averages, whatever they sign. Obviously, Miles Sanders is coming off a little bit better season most recently.
I think, I don't know how this is where I got to caution myself, because the perception of the public and the perceptions of NFL front offices are often 2 very different things.
Yep.
And I think the public perception is that Miles Sanders, particularly because of where he was drafted compared to David Montgomery, is a much better back, maybe higher upside back. And I actually don't think that's the case. And I don't know how NFL teams are going to evaluate them. I don't know in terms of running style, in terms of, tread left on the tire. Sam Rush checking in here with, this is a deep draft at running back. Why overpay for anyone? And it's because I'm wondering if you don't, if you're not overpaying for David Montgomery, and again, if you can solidify an above average guy at a discounted price in this market, like David Montgomery David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert did seem like a pretty good pairing back there, Sean.
They did. I'm not convinced that David Montgomery is looking to sign at a discounted price, though. I think that would have happened already.
Yeah.
And, just the optics of, him taking photos with his family out at Soldier Field after the last game of the season. I just feel like he's been ready to hit the free agent market and get as much money as he possibly can.
I hope he gets it. I don't think the big deal is going to be there, but I mean, when there's just not a lot of big free agent deals for running backs, right? Like teams are loading up.
No, but you know what? He might be the best. These 2 guys that we're talking about are the 2 best left on the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so maybe that does push his number up. And you bring the conversation back to the Bears. I mean, you're now, after this trade, you've got 2 second-round picks. You've got number 53 and number 61, and then you're picking again at number 64 with the first pick in the 3rd round. I mean, if you want to get a running back, we think this is a deep running back class, draft class, you're going to have some options there in that range if you want to get a guy to pair with Khalil Herbert. And I personally feel like that's more what Ryan Poles wants to do. That's more how he wants to build his team, just because of where he's coming from. I mean, we haven't seen the Chiefs spend big money on a running back in like 7-8 years.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way they organize their system. I have no problem if the Bears go that route. I prefer they go that route, but with the way this is developing, I think, I'm giving David Montgomery more of a thought than I expected to be because of this trade going into free agency next week. Okay, let's see, a few things in here to hit, and we do want to get out of here soon. Got to get back to some of this content, get it all up to shawlocal.com. Alan had a question, says, does this change who Bears will extend, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end? Sean, what do you think there?
I lean towards no. I still think I think Cole Kmet is a guy that they're going to try to extend before the season. I think
I can
Darnell Mooney is also in that discussion. I think Chase Claypool has to play out the season, and you got to see what he really provides next year. He's another guy who's on an expiring deal. And then, I mean, quarterback, you have the option that you have to decide the 5th-year option after next season. So you got a little time on that.
Yeah, they're not Justin. I don't see any way Justin Fields is getting new money this year. I agree with you on your assessment of Komet. I think he's by far the most likely of Mooney and Claypool of getting the extension this offseason. I you know I would say, if I had put odds on it or a percentage on it, I would say probably like 65% chance Cole Komet gets something done. Like it just the way he's playing, the way he kind of took off this year, the way the Bears speak of him, that just seems like a good marriage right now. So I think they'll probably get a deal done with him. Mooney, like 40% chance. Like,
It's certainly less. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that he's shown enough that, and they like his leadership abilities as well off the field, that I think it's realistic that they could extend him. I don't think there's any chance with the way things went with Claypool. To me, like this is I don't want to write Chase Claypool off. And maybe I shouldn't say like this is a sign that they don't trust Chase Claypool, but this is a sign they don't trust Chase Claypool, right? Like I love Chase Claypool. I liked when they made the trade. It didn't work. They're now trying to make sure, like they know they can't rely on it. They're going to give it a chance, but they know they can't rely on it.
Yeah, they know they can't. That's a great way of putting it, Kyle. They know they can't rely on just Mooney and Claypool and some of their third wheel to get it done. So they went out and got DJ Moore. And I would say my one concern with the Darnell Mooney thing, like I think they for most reasons the answer would be yes, extend him. I would just caution because he's a small dude, and we saw it last year. Obviously injuries aren't really something you can control, but when you're a smaller guy and you get rolled up on by a big lineman or whatever, you break your ankle and you're out for the rest of the season. So that's the one concern with Mooney is he's not a big dude, and maybe they do want to play it out with Mooney and Claypool, and whoever has a good year is coming back, something like that.
I mean, so that's when you hear coaches talk about creating competition. That is creating competition. And for God,
who wants the bag?
I hate it so much when they're talking about creating competition, and like you look at the roster and you're like, we're not dumb. Like there's no competition here. Like the Bears, Ryan Poles is starting to create some depth on this team though. And when you look at the amount of draft picks that he's going to go into this with and this free agent class, or the money they're going to go into free agency, even though, like I said, I don't expect them to spend huge now. This is going to be a lot deeper team come the 2023 season opener, Sean.
Yeah, and I think you'll feel a lot better about what this passing game could be, because obviously it wasn't good last year, and when Claypool and Mooney were both hurt in December, it was really, really bad at that wide receiver spot. And if you got three guys who you think can be pretty good, I mean that really is a buffer there. If one guy goes down with an injury, you still have options.
All right. Derek, I saw this question come in several times. Derek Smith joining us from Facebook. Derek, nice to have you. Think you're a first-time commenter here, so thank you very much. He said, any chance you think the Bears offer a trade for DeAndre Hopkins? I know some other people in the chat had mentioned that earlier. Sean, I thought a DeAndre Hopkins trade was pretty unlikely to begin with. It just his age and profile did not, and the contract, those things to me just seem like a disaster waiting to happen. It could work out, but too many times in the NFL that blows up in your face.
Yeah, I think the idea of getting a DJ Moore, he's 25 right now, he'll be 26 by the time next season starts. he's under contract for a couple of years and he's still young. I think that is much more appealing. Before today, I would have said maybe. At this point, I don't think there's any possibility of that. I don't see that happening at this point. I mean, I think you're pretty happy with Mooney and Moore and Claypool and that combination moving forward.
Who else is under contract? They signed Equanimeous St. Brown to the 1-year extension.
St. Brown's under contract.
Velus Jones obviously under contract.
Jones is under contract. N'Keal Harry is a free agent.
So we're at
Dante Pettis is a free agent. Byron Pringle is also a free agent.
So we're at 5 wide receivers now. Right? They have
at least,
we're at 5 wide receivers.
There might be a futures guy in there or something, but yeah. 5 guys who you expect to compete for active roster spots.
Yeah, so they're not going to make they're not making a trade for DeAndre Hopkins after something like that. What I would expect at the wide receiver position, you'll probably see 1 or 2 veteran free agents in the same kind of mold that you saw last year.
I could see them getting like a cheap, buy low type guy.
Yeah, I could even see them. I don't know what like Mecole Hardman, like what he's in for. I haven't looked at anything like that for wide receivers because but like he's the type of speed, that they don't possess really. Like Moore, Moore is fast, but like, Hardman is that kind of just elite speed guy. Yeah. I could see them doing something like that in free agency, but I think it's more going to be kind of wait out the first wave of free agents, sign a couple of veterans, and then, mix and match in the draft with a couple guys probably in the mid to late rounds, and that'll be the wide receiver core.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Mecole Hardman might get more money than we expect, or more years than we expect. Just because I don't know.
It's wide receiver in the NFL.
It's wide receiver in the NFL, and he's coming. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and I know his numbers weren't fantastic last year, but he's been pretty productive for that Chiefs offense.
Yeah, I will put nothing past any NFL team with wide receivers in free agency after the Christian Kirk deal last year. And again, like Christian Kirk played pretty well, but like that deal showed we really have entered a new era of NFL free agency when it comes to the way teams are going to spend on wide receivers. The contracts that are getting out or are being handed out to these wide receivers it's a different stratosphere than even 5 years ago. So,
Kyle, that's why you're seeing teams go out and get their guys via trade. I mean, that's been the big story kind of the last 2 off seasons is, these Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams trades. Not, I wouldn't throw DJ Moore's name up with those guys, but similar idea. Like, if you don't want to overpay, if you don't see the right guy in free agency, go get him somewhere else.
All right. We should get out of here, Sean. It's 6:30 on a Friday. It's about time to go get a beer, right? I'm sure Bears fans, everyone in the chat's already probably cracked a beer celebrating this trade. So everyone, it was awesome that you jumped on here. Stick with us this weekend. Like I said, the DJ Moore piece is already up. Hub is coming up to shawlocal.com here pretty soon. Check that out tonight. Check it out over the weekend. Make sure you visit us. We got free agency starting. When is the opening? The
11 a.m. on Monday is when teams can officially begin calling players and vice versa.
So the mayhem will begin at
11 a.m. Central.
Yes. So I'm not sure when we're going to fit another one of these live streams in, because I feel like we got to be careful when we do it, because if we do it, it's going to be out of date within an hour.
That's a great point.
So not going to make a set date yet, but we'll be
back soon.
We'll be back with you guys next week to talk free agency. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Enjoy a really surprising trade that we didn't see coming. For Sean Hammond, I am Kyle Nabors. This is the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Talk to you guys later.